fees and interest on mortgages. Small businesses are encouraged to get, gather, and go. Get informed by visiting getgathergo.com. There you can gather the needed information and go apply as soon as the SBA program opens with local lenders. For info, visit getgathergo.com to get your business ready to apply.
WOCA. Ocala.
Listening to AM Ocala Live, WOCA, The Source, 96.3 FM, 1370 AM. Streaming live, YouTube Live, WOCA, The Source Radio. As we are now, 7 minutes past the top of the 8 o'clock hour, it's time for Life South Community Blood Centers and our good friend Galen. Good morning, Galen. How you doing this morning?
Hey, Adam, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. The sun's starting to come out here. We had all of that weather come through yesterday, and, some areas experienced stronger winds than others. With that being said, some of them were a tornado of such, and I know in the Homosassa area there was one that ripped through over 75. And
Wait. How did you say that?
What's that?
Say that word again.
Which one?
The one that began with an H.
Homosassa.
Ha! Yeah, I can tell you're not from here.
Homosassa. Through Homosassa.
Hey.
Homosassa.
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 I don't know how else you would say it. Homosassa.
I always
say Kissimmee.
Kissimmee. Or, well, it's interesting because, Ocala, and I guess I've always heard since I was here, it's Ocala, but every now and then you get somebody who you know is not from here and they say, like, Ocala?
Yeah, we call those people tourists.
Canadians, if you will. But anyway, yes, so with the weather moving through yesterday, I know somebody had some people had some debris and everything else, but quite a bit that blew through really quick, but it ended up being a gorgeous evening and afternoon, which leads to today, which high in the mid-80s, and then tomorrow as well. So a little cooler tonight, though, partner. It's going to get down in the 50s tonight.
Right, it's weather.
Now, you're on your way. You're driving a little bit. How has the traffic been? Have you noticed even more and more cars on the road since a few weeks ago?
Yeah, every day there's a little bit more.
Right.
I think once Georgia opens up, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I was like, hey, I may just go to Valdosta for lunch. So just so I could sit down in a restaurant, go to the Pig and Chick, and some good barbecue.
Ooh.
So I'm glad Georgia's opening, because that makes it a lot easier for Florida to open.
Sure.
So I think Alabama's going to open pretty soon too, because they have even less cases than Georgia.
Yeah.
And if anything, they're more red than the state of Georgia. So there's just a tremendous amount of pressure on people right now.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this gets opened up a lot quicker than people think, because people, it's more than just sitting at home, bored. It's you're bored and you're just worried about your job. You're worried about going back to work. And I think people are sick of it.
Yeah.
And I saw somebody compare this to the governor of Michigan were comparing it to World War II. I'm like, that had nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
One, you were allowed to go outside, right?
Right.
Two, you had to go to work because, a lot of men's, and women's lives, mostly men, lives depended on you making those planes and making those ships and those bombs and those armament. You had somebody over there, that were fighting in that war. This isn't even anything close to that. So, not even close. And I'm like, 400,000 people died, U.S. citizens died in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to get anywhere near that with this virus.
No. And now with with everything else too, with the conversation that we had Marion County Public Schools in, the craziness is just how different things are, and even now with Governor DeSantis saying over the weekend that schools are closed for the rest of the year, and with that, it's almost I'm trying to find the right word. It's almost like you want to see something. How do you say it? Like when you're talking about maybe Georgia opening up, that would make it easier for Florida, and I guess it makes sense, everything we were talking about just a little bit ago, to have that be mentioned for the schools to be closed the rest of the year. But even so, it's like if we can get things start opening up again, at least it takes a lot of pressure off of everything else, like the stuff that you have to do right now if you've got kids who are in school doing the distance learning and all that stuff. It's one of those things where we're talking about this week, seeing where the numbers are with the Department of Health by the end of the week, and then having that happen maybe next week and May 1st coming into it. But not only that, it would take some pressure off some of the other things, like what's necessary still for distance learning and for schooling. Opening things back up. At least on the weekend you can go to the beach, and then you'd be more inclined to say, all right, let's get some schoolwork done come Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think that's it. I think, for the most part, the kids don't have any problem with it. Maybe the younger ones do, but, elementary school is more of a collective, everything's more of a joint project than in like high school or even middle school, where there's a lot of individual work. So, I think we've got that figured out. And so many, most of the kids are pretty literate with a computer and the internet. I mean, this generation, if you're in high school now, you do not know what life is like without your cell phone or a computer.
Yeah.
So, or a tablet or something. So I think they'll be fine. I think it's harder probably for the teachers to cope and adapt and adjust. But I do think we'll go to school in August. I think we'll start back up in August. I don't think we'll have a problem.
Yeah. And then I would say in some sense that's one of those things that'll help, considering everything that's gone on, getting to a point in August where we're actually then having them go back to school. Boy, that'll actually feel good for a lot of people, knowing like, all right, that's going to be a sense back.
That'll happen. By the time we get back in August, we'll look back and go, wow, we went through that, and then it'll depend on how COVID impacted you individually, how you react to it.
Yeah.
Whether you think it was the worst decision in the history of the world or we didn't do enough. But by August, I think we'll go back. I think we'll have to, because of there's just no way. You cannot have online learning for all of these people effectively, because there's just not enough resources in most of these households.
Right.
Because if you think about it, my son has 2 classes, right? Because they can't have more than that, because if you're in a home with 4 or 5 kids going to school at the same time, you don't have enough computers or tablets or anything else to make that work. It's just a resources issue. So I think they'll go back to school. And if they don't go back to school, the economy will never recover, and we will go into a depression, and more people will die from poverty and domestic violence and everything else we've been talking about than some virus. I think we'll be back. I really believe, I think 95% of the country will be fully back by the end of May. And then I think there'll be some that hold out just because they think, again, it's safety under the guise, or sacrificing our liberty for the guise of safety. And I think people believe the government's supposed to protect us from everything. And so those kinds of people will stay inside. And you don't have to go out, right? Let's say they open up everything tomorrow. The governor says everything's 100%. You don't have to leave your house.
No.
Nobody is saying go outside and get this virus. So, and there was a study they released that they believe the spread, you're more likely to get the virus if you stay indoors than if you go outdoors.
Is that right?
It stays in buildings longer.
Yeah.
But that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sunshine kills a lot of things. Heat water, rain, weather. I know you love your weather. Weather kills a lot of viruses. And staying inside, breathing the same air all day is not healthy. I don't care what kind of HEPA filter and the UV light you have on your air conditioning unit. Go outside, get some fresh air, right?
That's right.
So, this goes back years. I mean, that's how they handled the Spanish flu. Was outdoor hospitals were more effective than indoor hospitals.
Yeah.
There you go. Again, I just don't understand this. I don't, and you can't shut down the parks. They need to open up the parks today.
Right.
Give my son something to do.
Right. And then with that, like we mentioned last week when we had county commission on, it was about the conversation of boat ramps that were controlled by the county, and they opened up those. The beaches was still expectations of distancing and all that, but like you said, now let's bring the parks. Let's work the things that make logical sense, that are outside, that gives people a little something to do, and kind of steamrolls into getting, like you said, back to some normalcy, if you will. Absolutely. I agree with that a little bit. Now, with what was I going to say? With all this talk of how is it that, where did I want to go with this? Basically, kind of like what you're mentioning with with the economy. If it were to happen where kids wouldn't go back to school in August, like you said there, the economy would suffer big time, even more so. Do you see the? I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you see the economy coming back from this, and does that come into a big part of, like, hey, the sooner we open this back up in lieu of beginning of May, that nips things in the butt for the turnaround of the economy? Or do you still see some things carrying on through the summer that don't look good, especially when the price of a barrel of oil is at its absolute lowest it's ever been, or something like that? Do you see the economy still staying hurt through the summertime, or do you see it immediately, as soon as we say we're open back up, the economy comes right back? I might have lost him there. I might have been into a little bit of a dead zone there nonetheless. But anyway, with this segment of Life South Community Blood Centers, we'd like to... there we go. Now we got him back. You there, Galen?
You were rambling, and then I cut off. Yeah.
Gotcha. No, I was just getting after the concept of whether or not you think the economy will come right back as soon as they open things, or do you think that the economy will struggle through the summertime?
No, because if you think about it, there's a couple of really big things that have to happen. So the economy comes back. You have to be able to put your child in daycare to go to work, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have a two-parent household, they're probably both working. And if you're a single parent, you're definitely going to work, and who's going to take care of the kids? So you have to have daycare open. Everything's going to start from, to me, there. And when our service industries open, everything will start to build off of that.
Yeah.
When I mean service industries, I mean restaurants, barbershops, and hospitals need to be able to do elective surgery. I'm hoping that happens earlier than expected. I heard, May 8th, and I'm like, God, it's got to be faster than that.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge chunk of our population. So it'll ease back in that way, but it will not be fast. It will not be fast at all. Because even if for example, a lot of people who travel for work, I don't think that will happen immediately.
Yeah.
But restaurants need to open where you can go in and sit down, and then it'll start to build from that. And then, to me, it'll be a floodgate as well. So they'll try to do that for a week or so, and then people are like, no, I'm opening up everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And also, too, with that, like you said, I almost feel like, in a way, there'll be a spike. The economy will do good for a little bit, and then it might fall back again, just as other like you mentioned, like not everybody's going to open
wouldn't
everything
fall
back up right away.
I wouldn't fall back.
Just
I wouldn't spike and then fall back. When you say the economy, do you mean the employment, or what sector are you talking about?
Right. I'm thinking just in general, just saying like basically I'm rambling and I'm trying to find a point, but I can't because it's a Tuesday and there's no sports to talk about, so I'm running dry.
Here's the thing. Well, the economy, it's really simple. If you're going to, I'm going to gauge it off of the jobs, right? I think it'll be a steady uptick. Now, what the plateau of that uptick is going to be very interesting, right? How many of these people who lost their job or were furloughed have a job to go back to?
Right.
It's going to be the biggest question.
Right.
So that's what I'm talking about. I don't think it's going to spike and come back down. That doesn't make any sense. I think it'll go up and plateau, and then we'll see what happens. Now, what level it plateaus off, I think is everybody's, take a guess.
Yeah.
So, but I think the economy is much more interesting. It's much more deeper than that. The growing season's about to come in, so the pickers are going to need jobs. That's an important thing, and Trump just closed the border for all immigration.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming they'll allow the pickers to come in and start harvesting, because that's a big piece of our economy.
Right.
But it depends on how quickly that happens and how comfortable people are. And then if you're going to look at the spending index, that's just the confidence. That just depends on if they think their dollar's going to be there next week.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
That will be very interesting, but it's going to be, I think it'll be a slow rise, then it'll plateau, and then we'll see what happens.
Do you see by next year us returning back to with the economy being where it was when we left to do all the, basically, do you see in February of 2021 the economy being as good as it was when we had to shut down everything for COVID-19?
Oh, it all depends. One, you have an election in there.
Yeah.
Right? November 2020 is going to decide what the economy looks like next year. Period. End of story. Because, if the Democrats win, our economy will look completely different than if Trump wins.
Right.
That's just a fact. So you can't look past that. You can't look past the February. You can look to the end of the summer, and we'll see. But it depends on what you're looking at. What's the job market? To me, unemployment is the most important thing. So what the unemployment rate is. Because I think we had zero unemployment before, and I think it was hurting businesses. So if we can get I know for us, we just couldn't find any staff. Before coronavirus, we were short like 45 staff in our organization. So then we put on a hiring freeze because we weren't collecting anything. So now, will this open up more jobs for people? I don't know. Or is the job market smaller, right? They always talk about job growth. Let's see. Who the heck knows? It depends on which sectors come back and how they recover. And a good way to do it is drive around and see what restaurants are open or small shops. Let's see. We won't know until we open. And the longer it takes for them to open, the fewer businesses return.
Yeah. With this segment, we want to give a shout out to Palm Garden Health and Rehabilitation Center, located at 2700 Southwest 34th Street, where they offer skilled nursing, physical, occupational, and speech therapy. Any questions on how they're handling COVID-19, give them a call, 352-854-6262, 854-6262. And, of course, Penn Flooring, 1201 Southwest 17th Street in Ocala, full-service flooring company dedicated to finding the best solution for your flooring needs with experience in both commercial and residential. 352-351-3420, 351-3420. And then, Galen, I wanted to bring up, partner, in lieu of not having no baseball here, but I did want to bring up yesterday in history. It was in 1912 yesterday that Fenway Park opened up, and had its game between Boston Red Sox with the visiting New York Yankees. And it was pretty neat considering how it mentioned also that it was 1916 on the date yesterday that the Wrigley Field, which was Weegham Park, which eventually was renamed Wrigley Field, was in 1916. And just right there was just a little teaser of just knowing that the history of baseball within our country, and then thinking about those being the oldest ballparks that are still being used today, which is pretty incredible. 1912 and 1916.
Yeah, there you go. A lot of history there.
Now, what was kind of cool was back in 1912 for that Fenway Park opening between the Boston Red Sox and what was the New York Yankees, which they weren't the Yankees at the time, but they were later, eventually called the Yankees. But that game went. The Red Sox actually defeated the Yankees 7-6 in 11 innings. So the very first game in Fenway Park actually went to extras, which was pretty neat. And then here we are, that many years later. Now, have you been to Fenway Park?
Yeah, several times. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's one ballpark I haven't
been to Wrigley too.
Been to Wrigley? Yeah, I had the chance to go. It wasn't during the season when I was in Chicago, but it kind of fell through. I just at least wanted to see the stadium, but to see a ball game in it would be pretty special too, nonetheless. But yeah, the two oldest ballparks in the major leagues, which is pretty neat. Now,
well, they're both iconic, right? I mean, you could pick Wrigley Field out of a lineup. You could pick Fenway Park out of a lineup. So
yeah.
Now, more the spot for probably Wrigley than Fenway on the outside. I think most people could walk right by Fenway and not know it's a ballpark.
Yeah.
But Wrigley you could, because it's such an iconic entrance.
Do you ever see them not using those facilities? Do you ever see them, for those teams, end up getting new stadiums, or will always be refurbish and then just update to continue to use those old stadiums?
Well, neither one has room to grow.
Right.
Right. So, we'll see what baseball looks like in 20 years.
Yeah.
Fenway just they spent a lot of money on updating it, everything, and I think they expanded the life at least another 20 years. And let's see what baseball looks like in 20 years.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Right? I mean, heck, if people keep panicking over stuff, they may just decide we'll never do it in fans, and then we'll have fake crowd noise.
Like fake laughter for sitcoms. Yep.
There are colleges and pro teams now that do fake crowd noise to augment to make it sound better on TV.
Yeah.
Well, that could really happen.
It could. Well, Galen,
you don't think they could CGI in the crowd? Of course they can.
High def CGI crowd. Hey, yeah, you never know. Like you said, 20 years from now, who knows? Well, appreciate it, partner. You enjoy yourself. Be safe getting up there, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you tomorrow, my man. You take her easy.
Right, man.
You got it,
all right,
buddy.
Good. Bye.
All right. And we'll be back right after this. WOCA, Ocala, 96.3 FM, 1370 AM. Back after this.
I'm Chris Foster. President Trump using Twitter to announce he'll be signing an executive order to suspend immigration into the United States because of the coronavirus pandemic and lost American jobs.
Democrats reacting. Congressman Jerry Nadler tweeted President Trump now seeks to distract us from his fumbled COVID-19 response by trying to put the blame on immigrants. And Congressman Joaquin Castro tweeted calling the order an authoritarian-like move to take advantage of a crisis.
Fox's Jill Nato. There could be a Senate vote today on putting more money into a program meant to help small businesses keep workers on the payroll. Democrats have been trying to add more help for state and local governments, too.
GOP leaders have said they will not support new money for state governments, but a proposal to boost hospital funding by $75 billion with additional money set aside to expand testing appears to be gaining momentum.
Fox's Jared Halpern. America's listening to Fox News.
These past several weeks, healthcare workers, first responders, and retail workers have emerged as heroes. Lowe's recognizes their efforts, and we want you to join us in creating DIY thank you messages using items you can find in your home. A can of paint, wood scraps, or even Christmas lights. You can find ideas to get you started at lowes.com/buildthanks. Once your message is ready, share it outside your home for them to see and online using the hashtag BuildThanks.
There will be parties again soon and family gatherings. There'll be parades and sporting events and concerts. To help our communities when they come back together, respond to the 2020 census now. Spend a few minutes online today to impact the next 10 years of healthcare, infrastructure, and education. Respond online today to make America's tomorrow brighter. Shape your future. Start here at 2020census.gov. Paid for by U.S. Census Bureau.
WOCA.
Today in Ag News from the Southeast AgNet, here's AgNet Media's Taylor Hillman.
The Be Sure campaign, brought to you by the Growing Matters Coalition, is reminding applicators about the importance of applying product according to label directions. Syngenta's Garrett Gilcrease reminds growers that labels are constantly being updated and need to be checked and followed during every use, especially during springtime foliar applications.
Yeah, the foliar application is probably the most overwhelming application we do, whether it be by air or by ground. It's an application that's blown on by a sprayer. And there's a lot of things you have to keep in mind. The first one would be you want to direct it away from any flowering plants. It's springtime now. I'm looking at roses that are blooming, wildflowers that might be blooming, those kinds of things, and those attract pollinators. So we want to direct that spray away from those, our target plants, I'd say, so that way we don't have any undue impact on those beneficial insects. Buffer zones is another one that could be used as well. Consistently with certain products that buffer zones around schools, neighborhoods, bodies of water, even other crops, and I would say even flowering plants as well. Applying to that last 100 feet or 200 feet or whatever might be specified in the label is not worth what the downside could potentially be by spraying that area against the label, and it's there for a reason. And then the other part is to actually keep the people using the product safe and everything. That's something about calibrating your sprayers and applying at the right place, the right time, at the right rate. That ensures that you keep people safe as well, the mixers, the handlers, the loaders, and the people actually applying the equipment. So that way we get what we need to get done and then also do it in a safe manner.
This reminder was brought to you by the Growing Matters Coalition as part of the Be Sure campaign, an initiative reminding farmers and applicators to follow stewardship best practices to protect pollinators and other wildlife. Visit growingmatters.org for more information. I'm Taylor Hillman for Southeast AgNet.
My fellow conservatives, please stay safe during this COVID-19 crisis. I'm Ryan Chamberlain, candidate for Congress. Here's my plan to protect us from future pandemics. First, stop doing business with communist China. Second, let's replenish our emergency medical stockpile and then pay off the national debt to keep our dollar strong. And finally, let's build the wall. I'm Ryan Chamberlain, and I approve this message. Now let's fire Nancy Pelosi and put America first. Paid for by Ryan Chamberlain for Congress, District 3.
Hi, this is Will.
And this is Wendy of Dex Imaging in Gainesville and Ocala. You know, we live and work in this community just like you, and we wanted to personally invite you to call us with any questions or concerns about your copiers or printers.
Like, how can I save money on my toner? That stuff's expensive.
In most cases, a complimentary workflow analysis has shown we